everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a PS2 game, and that happens to be Homura. But no, not Homura Akemi from Madoka Magica, but Homura is in the PS2 arcade game. So it was originally released in the arcade, but then got ported to the PS2 within the same year of 2005. And it was developed by Skolnick Entertainment, which is a Korean company, and then was published by Taito in Japan. But in Europe, it was published by 505 Games. Yeah, this is one of those games that got a release in Japan and Europe, but not in North America, which is really strange. Although I have heard a few times before that Sony in North America did not want to release 2D related games on their systems for some whatever reason. But I'm not 100% sure if this is true, since I always hear different things about it where people say it's true, some people say it's not true. Well, whatever the case is, it still kinda sucks that this game was not released in North America. Well, anyways, in case you haven't noticed, this game is indeed a shoot-'em-up, and it has a feudal Japan setting with some demons involved. So, let's begin and start talking about the story. Even though I know that the story within shoot-'em-ups are not really the main reasons why you play them, but this one does have some little interesting tidbits. So, there was a fallen angel that ends up stealing a forbidden treasure, and then he happens to give it to a shogun named Ieyasu Takagawa, which I'm sure, as you may know, he is a real-life historical figure from feudal Japan. So after the fallen angel ends up giving him the treasure, he ends up becoming possessed and ends up wanting to take over the entire world, and yeah, that's really all you need to know. So the thing that I always found interesting with some video games is whenever they take a real-life historical figure but ends up, wanting to change it up a little bit. I always thought that was really cool. So with that said, let's start talking about the gameplay. So this game is a top-down bullet hell shooter, where you just gotta shoot the everlasting shit out of everything when it comes to demons, some machines, and even some random other Japanese stuff. In fact, I find that this game's setting-wise, it kinda reminds me of Sengoku Blade on the Sega Saturn. But one interesting mechanic that they added within this game that is different from most other ones is that not only do you just get your shooting and your bombs, but you also get a sword mechanic. Although you don't use it like a melee weapon like you do in games like Soul Divide. Instead, this one, you actually deflect bullets with it, but you can only use it every few seconds. But if you are very close to being in danger and then you use it, then you can use a special type of bomb that just blows up everything. It's fucking great. And one other thing that is nice that they added in with the gameplay is that you actually do get two different pathways that you get to choose from when you get to a certain point within the stage. And of course, depending which path you take, one of them is easier or harder. But they both lead up to the same end boss of that stage, so it does make for some pretty good replay value if you do want to beat the game all over again, that you can just do another part of the stage. And as for your reward for beating some of these stages, that you get to unlock stuff for the art gallery, which is pretty nice because I do have to say the art for this game is actually really awesome looking. Now in this day and age, I'm sure some people would be like, oh well, that's fucking stupid, I can't do anything with that. Well, you just gotta remember, this is on the PS2 before they had an achievement system. Now one last thing to mention about the gameplay is that whenever you destroy enemies, they drop money, and whenever you pick them up, they fill up your meter, and the higher your meter is, the more powerful your attacks are. Which is very similar to games like Castle of Shikigami. So that pretty much sums up all you need to know about the gameplay in this game, so if you've played a shoot-'em-up before, then this game you shouldn't be missing any other information about it because, seriously, all you gotta do is just shoot the everlasting fuck out of everything. So now let's get moving on to the controls, and the controls in this one are really good. And they're so simple that I really don't understand how someone could get confused by this. You move around with the analog stick, you hold down square to shoot, and then you have the circle button that uses the sword attacks. And they feel very responsive and smooth, so I really don't have any complaints with this game, and like I said before, there really should not be any confusion whatsoever. So now let's get moving on to the other things, like the graphics. And the graphics for this one are not bad, but there's a couple things about it that could have been done better. But first, let's talk about the good. So probably the best part for me is that this game's art direction and character designs are just fucking amazing looking. Not only in the art gallery that they look really cool, but even in gameplay graphics I still find that they look really great. And I just like the overall setting of the game, but unfortunately I do find that some of the background graphics are a little bit bland for the most part. Now, there is a couple backgrounds that do look kinda nice, but that's really the nicest thing I can say about them. Also, considering that this game was released in 2005, there's other shoot-'em-ups that came out before on the PS2 that just look way better. I just find that a lot of the backgrounds just look really foggy looking and kinda blurry at times, which is really unfortunate since the stages that don't look as foggy or blurry are at least pretty decent to look at. But before we move on, one thing I do want to mention just for shits and giggles is that there's a level in this game called Hell's Kitchen. And before you start assuming things, no, it does not have the song from Dream Theater called Hell's Kitchen, and you don't get to fight a floating disembodied head of Gordon Ramsay.
Fuck off! Okay, I'm done. You, fuck off out of here!
Me!
Get out! Hey, excuse me, madam,
Russia.
fuck me! How about fuck you?
But yeah, all random shit aside, the graphics are not bad, but could have been a little bit better. So now, as for the game's music, I find the music in this one does sound pretty good. So the game's music kinda has an epic movie feel to it, and what I mean by that is that it has like a full orchestrated soundtrack, and I do find it does sound pretty good for the most part. But it's not the most amazing soundtrack I ever heard, but it's definitely not bad. But unfortunately, I only found like 2 songs from this game on YouTube, so there's not a whole lot of things I can show off when it comes to that, but I can at least say that if you are playing the game, that the music does fit it pretty well. So now, if you want to go out and buy this game, well, like I said before, this game is only released in Japan and in Europe, so if you're not from any of those 2 continents, then you're gonna have to import it, and you gotta make sure that you have a way to play some of these games. So first, let's take a look at how the Japanese ones are. So you can get a used copy for about $40 to $53, or sometimes $60, but there is some sealed copies going around for about $70 to $80. Now, as for the PAL region copies, these ones usually go for about $50 to $60, so not a whole lot different. Although there is a sealed one going for about $57, which doesn't seem so bad, considering that it is brand new, but however, there is some used ones going for about $80 to $91, which is just kind of insane. Especially for a shoot-'em-up that is a pretty short game, because yes, this game does not have a whole lot of levels within it, but it does have some replay value for the fact that you can take different routes for it, it will be slightly different. So yeah, this is one shoot-'em-up that's not that cheap of a game, but it's also not like outrageously expensive. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can obtain it for a lot cheaper than some of these prices, but of course you're gonna have to go out there and look. But typically it goes for about $50, which, as I said, can be kind of a lot for some people, which is very understandable. But if you do at least want to play the game on emulation, then I can at least say that this game does run perfectly fine. Never notice any graphical glitches, no slowdowns, no sound defects or anything like that. This game actually runs very well. So if you do have a decent computer to run some PS2 games, then this is one that I can say that does run really well. Even though PS2 emulation is still a little bit rough around the edges, but it's definitely not unplayable like some people claim it to be. So now, as for my overall thoughts on this game, is that I find this game is really enjoyable. So just like most shoot-'em-ups, it's a really easy game to just pick up and play and just shoot the everlasting shit out of things. And of course, I really like the setting of the game. I think it's actually a really badass looking game, even though I know it does have some bland backgrounds here and there, but at least like, you know, like the characters and the monster designs are all really great. And even though this game is pretty short, that doesn't mean that this game is easy, because now I died like so many times throughout this game, but of course it could also mean that I just suck at this game, considering that I'm not like all that great at shoot-'em-ups, but I still enjoy them a hell lot. And it is also worth mentioning that this game also has a limited continues, so if you do run out of credits, then it's game over, back to the start you go. And if you want to make the game even more harder than it already is, and you can actually turn off the credits, where basically if you run out of lives once, then it's fuck you, you go back all the way to the start, you fucker. So yeah, by doing that, you're basically playing hardcore mode. Even on very easy with that mode on, it's still really tough. So I do find this one to be a very challenging one, but it is definitely a whole lot of fun, and it does have a really cool art direction within it, which I do think is really awesome. But with this said, I still prefer the games that it's kind of similar to, you know, games like Sengoku Blade and Castle Shikigami. I think those games are definitely a lot better than this one, but this one is still worth a go. So that'll be all for Homura Akemi on the PlayStation 2. Oh, I mean Homura, my bad. But yeah, a pretty enjoyable shoot 'em up, so with that said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a game called Homura, and no, not the one from that anime called Puli Magi Madoka Magica. No idea what the hell I'm doing, but I just figured I might as well make fun of that somehow.